More than 31,000 Moms Clean Air Force members in the great state of Michigan, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow, the senior senator from Michigan. The senator is one of our greatest champions for protecting our environment and fighting the climate crisis. As the chairwoman of the Agricultural Committee, a member of the Environment and Public Works Committee, and a senior member of the Budget and Finance Committee, Senator Stabenow is the leading voice in the Senate on policies to address air pollution. She has championed legislation to enable more consumers to purchase zero-emission vehicles, funding for our critically important public health programs, and efforts to ensure clean, affordable drinking water for children in Michigan. Thank you for joining us, Senator. We are so pleased to welcome you to our Women in Climate Leadership conversation. Thank you for all the work you are doing in the Senate to protect America's kids. I have a couple of questions for you today, but before we get started, I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak about your priorities and your thoughts about addressing the climate crisis to protect health in the future of our children.
So great to be with you. It's really great to see you again. And I'm such a fan for Moms Clean Air Force and for all that you're doing, this great leadership climate summit, which is so very, very important. So let me just start by saying that all of us as moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas understand that the climate crisis threatens our way of life. It threatens everything right now. And we're seeing it in every part of our lives, and we're seeing the health effects. One of the things that I stress with folks that it's more disease carrying insects and mosquitoes, it's longer allergy seasons, it's worse air quality. For those of us in the Great Lakes, it's not only worse storms and crop damage, but we now know that the Great Lakes are actually warming faster than the oceans. So it's everything. It's about whether or not we're going to be able to fish and swim and getting our drinking water from the Great Lakes, and all of us who grew up with the Great Lakes. So it's frightening to imagine what we're going to be leaving our children and grandchildren if we do not act. And so the good news is that we can make a difference. We can slow it down, but we need to act fast. And we have a very short window left for us to be able to do the things that we need to do. So from my standpoint, it's the clean energy agenda, clean energy manufacturing tax credits, which I'm helping to lead on for electric vehicles and batteries and solar and wind. It's how we bring jobs home at the same time by making these things in America. So it's better in terms of dealing with carbon pollution. It's also better in terms of jobs and all the incentives we need to do to get people in these great new electric vehicles, many of which are being made in Michigan. And it's really important that we're also focusing on agricultural practices, forestry practices, and a range of things that will be good for our environment and for our economy. Ultimately, I would love to see us putting a price on carbon pollution. We've done that for other kinds of pollution and really made a difference over the years, building in that cost into the basic economy. But I'm for step by step, whatever we can get done as fast as we can do it. So, and let me just conclude by saying that it's not just about reducing carbon, it's pollutants like mercury and sulfur dioxide and dealing with ozone emissions that are particularly harmful to children. So there's a lot on our plate. We can do it, but we have to act now.
Well, you're right. We do need to act now. And I think it's great as the chairwoman of the Agricultural Committee and the member of the Finance, Environment, and Public Works and Budget Committees, you are uniquely positioned to play a major role in addressing the climate crisis. And as we celebrate the Women's History Month throughout March, we recognize your outstanding leadership. And we would love to know what inspires you to lead on climate.
It's really about my own family to start with. I think for all of us, I have a wonderful son and daughter, and their families now have produced 5 little grandchildren for me. And as somebody, again, who grew up in Michigan and loves our water, loves the Great Lakes, loves the outdoors, grew up in a small farming community where I see what's happening right now, just hitting our farmers over the head, and all the disasters, the destruction going on. Very real things are happening to us. It took a long time to get folks to actually be able to admit there's a climate crisis, but a majority of people now are. And so I feel a great sense of urgency, because I think the changes from the pollution we're talking about are coming faster than even many of the scientists thought, in terms of the impacts of carbon pollution and other greenhouse gases like methane and so on. So it's something that I think is critically important and is going to affect our kids and our grandkids. And in a broader sense, I would say in a global economy right now, when we look at food shortages and when we look at what's happening in other countries right now because of the heating up of the earth and the global food shortages and a whole range of things, it's going to impact our world, which ultimately impacts our children again, in a world where we are finding ourselves impacted by everything, happening in countries around the world. So I feel a sense of urgency that starts at home and then basically goes around the world to what's happening.
Yeah, and you're right. It does start at home with our kids and our families, but it also has a global effect that also affects everyone here in the United States. And Senator, I just wanted to follow up with a question. How will bold investments in climate action protect the health and future of Michigan and America in general?
Well, we need those investments that will create alternatives. Again, whether that's new kinds of transportation systems, electric buses. We have made major steps forward in the infrastructure bill that we passed to incentivize electric buses. We need to be incentivizing consumer credits and other clean energy manufacturing credits for cars and for trucks and other kinds of electric transportation. We also need to be incentivizing wind and solar and other kinds of electricity production, which is also a very big part of this. And so in the end, it's about a cleaner technology, cleaner electricity options. It's about making sure that we're doing everything we can in how we produce food and how we are moving forward to manage our forests. And by the way, I should say that when we talk about bold incentives, sustainable forestry is very important. Our largest forest, national forest in the United States, is the Tongass National Forest in Alaska. That forest holds more carbon in it than what we pollute in driving vehicles in a year. It's huge. So sustaining and protecting our old growth forests and managing what we call our nature-based solutions are a very big part of this as well. So we need to be bold. We need to have common sense. There's things we can do with agriculture and forestry. I so appreciate the support for our Growing Climate Solutions Act, which came out of the Senate with the unusual and historic 92 out of 100 votes, the first time we've ever gotten that kind of bipartisan vote on a climate bill. And so we're moving forward on that, but we have to be bold. We have to be bold. We have to be robust, because the problem is bold. The problem is huge, and we've not focused on it for a very, very long time. And I will ultimately say this: when Henry Ford and Thomas Edison were putting together the first vehicle in Michigan, and they were trying to operate it with a battery. It was a battery electric vehicle, and they didn't have the support and the incentives and the investments to help them figure out how to do that with a battery. 2 years, this is 1914. 2 years later, 1916, first oil and gas tax cuts were put into the American tax code in 1916, put into the code, and major incentives for oil and gas. And so over 100 years later, I mean, we see what's happened. Our friends that say we don't want wind and solar and electric vehicle incentives because we don't want to pick winners and losers. Our country picked a winner over 100 years ago, and they won. And it's polluted our atmosphere, our country, and our world for over 100 years with no cost built in any way to slow it down or clean it up. So we're on overtime right now, and we need to be big and bold to be able to turn this around.
Well, we appreciate your big and bold ideas and actions in the Senate. And we want to just thank you very much, Senator Stabenow, on behalf of the more than 31,000 members here in Michigan. We were delighted that you could spend some time with us today. Thank you for all the work you're doing in the Senate to protect America's kids.
Thank you as well. It's wonderful to be your partner.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.